Our 10th anniversary dinner was supposed to be a night of warmth, love, and celebration. At least that's what I told myself when I reserved the private room at the Little French Bistro in downtown Savannah, Georgia. Ordered 24 roses, chose her favorite dishes, and put on the navy suit she once swore made me look irresistible. I walked in expecting candlelight and nostalgia. Instead, I found 3 place settings. The moment I saw the extra crystal wine glass my wife had quietly added, a cold certainty settled in my chest. She stood there in a shimmering silver gown, smiling too wide, eyes sliding away from mine. Then the door behind me opened. Her ex, Brandon, strolled in like he'd been expected all along. My heart didn't break in that moment. It calcified. Because I already knew. I had seen the messages. I had known for days that she'd invited him. And I had decided exactly how this evening would end. She hurried toward him with exaggerated delight, hugging him like a long-lost hero, waiting for me to explode, to make a jealous scene, to give her the excuse she needed to call me controlling. I didn't give her the satisfaction. I simply smiled, walked around the table, pulled out a chair, and waited. She had no idea I'd spent the past week quietly talking to someone else. She had no idea the man she was trying to impress was already drowning. And she definitely had no idea who else I'd invited. Brandon sat, trying to look relaxed, but his eyes kept flicking to me like he sensed a trap. My wife leaned toward him, voice syrupy, hand brushing his sleeve. "We were just catching up," she announced loudly. "Brandon's been such a good friend." The lie hung in the air like cheap perfume. I smiled. "Oh, I know exactly how you've been catching up." Her hand froze mid-gesture. Before she could speak, there was a soft knock at the private room door. The candles themselves seemed to stop dancing. My wife's brow creased in genuine confusion. She hadn't invited anyone else. The door opened slowly, and there stood Brandon's wife, Allison. 8 months pregnant, exhausted, heartbroken, but radiating steel. One hand rested protectively on her belly. The other clutched a thin folder of printed screenshots I had delivered to her that afternoon. My wife's face went chalk white. Brandon shot up from his chair so fast it scraped the floor. "Allison, what? How?" She silenced him with a single raised palm. No screaming, just lethal calm. "Sit down." The room obeyed. Allison walked forward and gently placed the folder in front of my wife. "You wanted him here tonight," she said quietly. "Did you know he's been lying to both of us? Or were you just hoping he'd leave me and the baby he claims to want?" My wife's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Brandon collapsed back into his seat, pale as death, stammering excuses no one listened to. Allison looked at me. Gratitude, not bitterness, in her eyes. "Thank you for letting me see the truth before I kept raising a child with a liar." Then she turned to the table and began reading, slowly, clearly, every message, every promise, every midnight text Brandon had sent my wife while telling Allison he was working late. My wife sat frozen, listening to her own fantasy shredded aloud. When Allison finished, she slid the wedding ring off her finger, set it on the table in front of Brandon, and said, "You're her problem now." She looked at me one last time. "I hope the next woman you choose knows her worth." Then she walked out, head high, powerful, finished. Brandon scrambled after her, begging, voice cracking, crumbling in the hallway for the whole restaurant to hear. My wife stared at the empty doorway, then at the ring, then at the screenshots, then finally at me. shaking, mascara already smearing. "Elliot, why?" she whispered. I leaned back in my chair, calm, finished. "You invited betrayal to our anniversary dinner," I said. "I just made sure truth had a seat at the table." She buried her face in her hands and sobbed. The night she thought would make her feel desired became the night every illusion she'd built shattered in front of the man she tried to trade me for. I stood, smoothed my jacket, and delivered the last line she never saw coming. "Next time you want a different man at our anniversary dinner, make sure you have a new address to send the invitation to." Then I walked out, leaving her alone with the wreckage, the roses, and the 3 place settings she would never forget.